And dear artists, are you begging others to give you work? Are you begging someone else to give you an opportunity, whether that's a studio or freelance job? Today, I want to talk about why you should probably stop doing that. And there probably is, that can go somewhere else. But let me share my screen because I like to work while I talk. It just makes it a little bit more fun. All right, so let's go ahead and open up my project that I'm working on. This is the piece that I've been started a while ago. Bandeli, my character is running from this baboon. I haven't colored in the baboon yet, but I did finally get the design to how I like. I did a couple of tests in some previous videos, so now I'm just kind of laying in some color. But I really want to talk to you about not just this project, but about why you should have your own projects because it's so easy for us as artists to think that other people's projects are more important than ours, or more special than ours, or are more valuable than ours. I think a lot of that comes from our fear of working alone. We have a fear that, we lose our momentum when we're working alone. I think we have the fear that our projects aren't good enough, and I'll get into more of that later. I think we have fears that no one will care about what we're doing by ourselves, and that is maybe in our own minds not that important. And those are all just limiting beliefs that we hold on to and that we need to start getting rid of as soon as we notice that we're having those thoughts and those beliefs and those misperceptions of our own value, of our own worth, of the things that we're able to contribute as artists. And I think it's really we're seeing that times have changed, times are continuing to change, and artists, we need to start packing up because I don't mean leaving the field, but we need to start making headway towards a new plan because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but I just learned yesterday that Disney has laid off an additional 1,000 workers and is replacing them with AI. And the pipeline is changing. So the pipeline is changing to do a lot of the things that were done by hand are now being done with AI. And you know what? I think the time for complaining about AI has passed. It's time to stop complaining about how bad it is or the jobs we're losing. Yeah, we know that. I think 7,000 jobs were cut um, in the last couple of years in the animation industry. And we need to not hold our fists and be mad at that, but say, oh, okay, I see what's happening now. I need to get myself together and figure out a plan for how I'm going to move forward from this day on, how I'm going to move forward in my artwork, how I'm going to move forward as I think about myself as an artist. I think a lot of us, if I would prefer if it's all of us, honestly, but I think a lot of us need to embrace entrepreneurship and realize that that is the way that we're going to be able to um, make a path for ourselves because how else are we going to do that? We're definitely not going to be doing that by holding on to the old dreams of working for a major studio when the jobs are cut. It was already hard to get in before. I'm talking about since the 2000s. It seems like it's been very hard to find opportunities, and it's just I want to say double down, but it's more than double. It's like quadrupled down at this point. So we need to know that the jobs that we were looking for, and I don't want to discourage you, if, especially if you're still in school, because I don't think it's a discouragement. I think that it's time for us to start thinking differently because the jobs that were once available are no longer available. And I've said this before, but we cannot um, be like the old coal miners and just, pray for the old days to come back because they're gone. You know what I mean? So I do think that our first step is waking up and just realizing that the industry is not the same. Second of all, I want to say that, we've all had these ideas and these dreams of working on someone else's project. When you're at the studio as an artist, it's not your project, it's not your story, it's someone else's story. And I think we thought that that was the ideal, to be able to get the chance to work on somebody else's story, and that maybe that would make us happy or feel important because, oh, look at me, like I work for this big studio and I'm working on someone else's project that has nothing to do with me or my values or my beliefs. So, we thought it was the ideal, but I think some of us who have worked on other people's projects, whether that's for freelance or in studio, once you get that job, it's kind of like, oh, it's great to make money doing art, but also it's like, I don't know, every time I had a freelance job, I'd be like, I kind of wish I was working on my own projects right now. And I know that I'm not the only one that's had that feeling. And there's been a lot of artists who have like saw that while they were in studio. And sometimes you'll see like independent films and things like that are being made by artists who are working in the studio and do that on the side. But doing it on the side is not a viable option for everybody. Not everyone is single. Not everyone is, at that age where they can, burn both the candles at either end. And not saying that you can't have a regular job, but it does take a different type of energy to create art. So doing two creative jobs that are different is very challenging. I tried to do that when I was doing my last freelance job, working on my own project um, while working on a freelance project, and it's actually harder. For me, I don't know how it is for other people, but for me, it was hard to use that creative energy in both projects, and it was actually easier for me to have kind of like a regular job while working on my creative projects. I will say it does give a different energy. Where you are makes, I don't know. I think you need to be in a surrounding too, because I know that like once I moved to LA, I did have a lot more motivation. I didn't have the opportunities that I was hoping for immediately, but something woke up in me that like really kicked me into like the gears to move faster and to get better faster. And I don't want to discourage anybody if you're not in a place, but I do want to encourage you to get in community. And there's so many opportunities to find like find your people somewhere, find your outlet somewhere so that you can have that motivation to move forward, because you need that. You need to have the energy to work, especially when you're doing your own projects. You need someone to encourage you. You need like ideas. You need to get that fire under you. And it's so funny. I just recently saw one of my favorite bands ever. AFI, Fire Inside is what that stands for. I know they're like 2000 circa 2000s era. Um, they got some albums from the 90s, late 90s, mid 90s, and going up to I think their most recent is last year. And I don't know, I loved that because I've been a fan for many, many years, and I finally got to see them in person, and that made my little millennial heart very happy. But it just but I was thinking about that and thinking about the music, and I hadn't been to a live concert, in a long time. I went to Beyonce's concert last year, which was really fun, but I hadn't been to a rock show in a long time, and that was really fun. And and I just realized too while I was there, I was like, wow, this is reminding me. I don't know how this is related to art, but I think it is. It just reminded me like, wow, you know, there's there is a fire inside of me, as corny as that sounds. But it is. I think there's a fire in all of us. And I think it's important to remember those parts of all of us. So I think, you know, and it just goes to say, like, having just being plugged in, like me going to that concert was feeling like me being plugged into this part of myself that I hadn't been plugged into for a long time. And I think it's important for our career and our creativity to be plugged in and to get the energy that we need to create, because it does, like, even going to things like that, it can just, there's a certain amount of energy that comes in with being plugged in. So I think it's really important to have community. I think it's important to be in a space and to be surrounded by energy that will inspire you to create and not give up. Excuse me. Um, Gosh, what was else was I want to say about this? I don't have a whole lot of time. I wish I had more time to talk and go into this more, and I will be um, recording more content because I think this is really important for me to talk about, because this topic is something that I really care about, and I think it's something that we should all come together and talk about more often. It's just how we're able to, exist beyond the studios, exist outside of that world, and create our own environments that allow us to create, that allow us to build off of our own ideas and not be dependent, not be codependent on studios, because I think so many of us have been, and we have to change that. We have to change that and create a new space for ourselves and for our work. Mm. The last thing I want to say about this whole concept is that I think a big reason why a lot of us don't put a lot of time or kind of brush off our own ideas for making work is, I think that we're insecure about our own ideas. We don't think our ideas are good enough. Even we might want to work on somebody else's project. Even it could be someone with the same education, same background. They might even have less skills than you, but something about someone else's ideas, and this has happened to me before, so that's why I'm talking about it. We just think their ideas are better. Like, we just don't give our own concepts and our own, like, ideas enough weight, and I think that stops us from moving forward sometimes. And I think that it's okay to have felt that way, but I think it's really important to recognize it and to, like, say, all right, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to belittle my own ideas and my own original concepts, my own original characters. I want to give them a chance to exist because they matter. It's just like, your stories do matter. And the only one who can tell them is you. So don't be intimidated by what other people are making. You might say, oh, this person is better at XYZ than I am, but it doesn't matter, because as an artist, you have that creative mind to create and to tell stories, and you have the experience that no one else has because you're uniquely yourself, and I am uniquely myself. So we do have stories that we can tell that will be entertaining, that will be fun, that will be engaging, that will give some sort of feeling. And I don't think that we should dismiss that. I think we should embrace that, embrace the fact that we do have stories to tell. So, with that, I wish I had more time to talk today, but I'm glad to be able to share a little bit of the insights that I'm having. I do think that artists need to start finding ways, and I'm seeing some artists doing this, and I'm looking into ways to get on board too, is to leverage AI for the lack of money that you don't have and the lack of a team that you don't have yet, because I mean, as individuals, we don't have the power to hire a team. We don't have the power to buy like a brick and mortar studio, but we have our iPads. We have our Wacom. We have, ChatGPT, and there's several programs that we can use. There's I went to like this, I went to a couple of like summits, but you can look this up about using AI to, first, you're going to start, have your own character. Have your own characters, your own original characters, and create a personality for them. I'll talk more about storytelling later, but if you have a strong character and you learn storytelling, then you can use AI to fill in the gaps. And I want to talk more about that in a later episode, but start with your own original character. I mean, if that's the only thing you have right now, start with that. And I want to encourage you to be grateful, live balance, be yourself. And don't worry, it's not the end for us. It's only the beginning. Okay? It's only the beginning. I will see you next time. Until then, be grateful, live balanced, and be yourself. Bye bye.